Hi everyone and welcome to this video on Act 2 Scene 3 of Macbeth. We're going to be looking at a character today called the Porter. But before we do that, I just want to check your knowledge of Act 2 Scene 2. So pause the video, jot down your answers to these questions really quickly and then start the video again when you're ready. Right, number 1 was Macbeth, number 2 Lady Macbeth, number 3 Neptune's. So Macbeth here is talking about needing all the water in the world and how even that won't be enough to wash away the blood that represents his feeling of guilt and remorse. And number 4, this contrasts with what Macbeth has just said, because Lady Macbeth says a little water clears us of this deed. She says we can wash away the blood and the guilt quite easily. So starting at 2 Scene 3, Shakespeare introduces a new character who's the porter. And a porter's job is to look after the door into something. So you might have one in your school, or you might see one at a university or a hospital, for example. They open the doors, they monitor who comes in and out. However, to think about Act 2 Scene 3, we need to take a quick jump back to the end of Act 2 Scene 1, because that scene concluded with these lines. Hear it not, Duncan, for it is a knell that summons thee to heaven or to hell. These lines are from a soliloquy that Macbeth gives at the end of Act 2, Scene 1, as he prepares to go and kill Duncan. And he's talking about hearing a bell that Lady Macbeth has rung. That's the knell he mentions here. And Lady Macbeth rings this bell to signal to Macbeth that everything is ready and prepared for the murder, and it's time to go ahead with the plan. And that final line of that scene is the word hell. And that word then resonates throughout the rest of the play. And especially in Act 2, Scene 3, where it seems as if the porter opens the doors into hell. And basically all hell breaks loose at this point of the play. And we're not going to read this whole section of the text, but I'm just going to pick out a few things that are really important from what the porter says. So there's a knocking at the gate. Macduff is outside. He's trying to get in. He wants to come in and see Duncan. And the porter is going towards the gate, and he's doing it really slowly because he's quite drunk. He's hungover from the night before. And he says, if a man were porter of Hellgate, he should have all turning the key. So the porter's kind of imagining himself as not being the porter of Macbeth's castle, but being the porter of hell, being the person who opens the gate to let the souls of the dead into hell. And when he says he should have all turning the key, what he means here is that he has turned the key so many times he could almost get sick of it, because so many souls are coming into hell. There's so many sinners in the world who have been damned to live out eternity in the flames of hell. And of course, we know that Macbeth is not going to be one of these people. He has damned himself by killing Duncan. As he gets towards the door, the porter calls out, "Who's there in the name of Beelzebub?" Now, Beelzebub is another name for the devil. And normally, as the porter approaches the door, they would say, "Who's there in the name of?" And then they would name their master. So really, the porter should say here, "Who's there in the name of Macbeth?" But instead of Macbeth, he says the name of the devil. So again, making a connection between Macbeth and hell, Macbeth and the devil. And then the porter talks about the everlasting bonfire, which is another reference to hell in this scene. So this speech is important primarily because it's almost as if in killing Duncan, Macbeth hasn't just damned himself to hell, but he's opened the gates to hell and brought hell into Scotland, which is where we see the rest of the play heading after this. Now, the person knocking at the gate is Macduff. So the porter goes and opens the gate to Macduff. Macduff comes in, and his integrity is juxtaposed with the porter's obscenity. Now, by integrity, I mean his morality. Macduff pretty much always makes the right choices for the right reasons in the play. He's loyal to the memory of King Duncan. He's then loyal to Malcolm, who's Duncan's son. He takes his revenge against Macbeth later on in the play. So Macduff is kind of a symbol of goodness in the play, a symbol of integrity. And that's juxtaposed or contrasted with the porter's obscenity. Now, at this point, when Macduff comes in, the porter says all sorts of disgusting and inappropriate things to him. He makes lots of comments about how alcohol brings on sexual desire but reduces the performance. There's one particularly memorable version of this scene, which is in the Patrick Stewart version of the play, I think from 2020, where the porter is urinating on stage, and he's really very obscene. He's really very inappropriate. And there's a really clear contrast here between kind of good and evil, morality and immorality, which is then linking in with the contrast between Macduff and Macbeth. Okay, so I want you to pause the video and think about this idea of opening the gates of hell. And I want you to write down all the things that you can think that are hellish in Macbeth Castle, and then start the video again when you're ready. Okay, here's what I come up with. You might have had some different things, but here's my ideas. Well, firstly, it's really dark in this scene. Don't forget about the staging of the play, because it is supposed to be a visual text that we're studying. And darkness is often a symbol of hell and evil. We also have the influence of the witches seeping through the play here, and we know that the witches are instruments of darkness, as in they're instruments or kind of workers for the devil. We have regicide, so the breaking of the divine right of kings is a real challenge to heavenly authority. We have the Macbeth's mental states as well. So in the previous scene, Lady Macbeth said, let's not think about it. Don't dwell on the thought of what we've done, because it will make us mad. And actually, psychologically, the Macbeths descend into hell after this scene. Macbeth tells his wife that full of scorpions is my mind. Lady Macbeth's psychological state deteriorates so much that she commits suicide by the end of the play. And then we have Macbeth's tyrannical rule. So after this, he kills women, he kills children. He basically makes everyone's lives in Scotland an absolute misery. And people are really tormented. So hell is unleashed at this point in the play. Okay, thanks very much for listening. In the next video, we're going to check out the rest of this scene.